So if you're in the process of wondering how do you build a website for your business, in today's step-by-step guide, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. We're going to set up the domain, we're going to set up hosting, an SSL certificate to make sure everything you submit via your website is all nice and secure. We're going to install WordPress, set up WordPress, and then build an entire site with WordPress and Elementor Pro. Also, we're going to add in a little bit of advanced custom fields magic so we can expand on what we can do and really have a personalized professional portfolio, just something you can be incredibly proud of. Don't worry if you think this is beyond you, it's not. I'm going to take you step by step through the entire process of every single stage. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a fully fledged professional looking WordPress website, something you can be proud of for your business and for yourself. So let's start by taking a look at the actual project we're working on. As you can see, we've got a very clean professional homepage with information about the company and our current projects. If we take a look then, we can go into the portfolio section and take a look at the projects in a little more detail. They're filterable, so we can live filter all of this. Clicking on any project will take us into the project details. And finally, we're going to take a look at doing something like creating a showcase for the team where we can find all their contact details alongside contact forms and so on. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is hop over onto the computer and take a look at grabbing the hosting and setting the domain. Now today we're going to be using SiteGround for this. SiteGround offers great WordPress hosting and also comes with a ton of other features, things like an SSL certificate included. And if you're wondering what an SSL certificate is, all it really means is it encrypts anything that's submitted via your website. So if someone sends a contact message to you from your contact form, it'll all be encrypted to make sure everything is nice and safe and secure. Okay, so let's just jump over now onto the computer and take a look at how we set up our domain and how we set up our hosting account. So looking at the shared hosting options for SiteGround, you can see we've got a range of different options available to us. We're going to be choosing the WordPress hosting for this particular example, but obviously you can choose any other one you want and the process is pretty much identical. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Managed WordPress Hosting, click on Get Started, and that's going to take us through then to the next stage of purchasing this. As you can see, we've got a range of different options available. We've got Startup, Grow Big, and Go Geek. Each one of these has the basic same options available. The only thing that really changes is the things like the amount of web space that you've got, the number of websites you want to host, and the number of monthly visits. So if you are starting off a new website, the startup should be more than enough. But if you think you want to sort of use the Grow Big or Go Geek, if you want to have more websites and more space, by all means choose those. You can always upgrade to these later on down the line, whichever one you choose. So we're going to choose the basic startup plan for this example, and we're going to say get the plan. That's going to take us through to the next stage now, which is where we can either choose to register a new domain if it's available, or we can use a domain we already own. Now for this video, I'm going to show you how to do this with a new domain, because chances are most of you are going to be in the position where you want to register your domain and your hosting at the same time. However, like I say, if you've already got a domain, you can simply choose already have a domain, and then you can move on to the next stage. So let's take a look if the domain that I want to use for this example is available. So we're going to go with WP Pro website, and we want the .com. So we're going to choose that. You can see it tells us the domain registration is £14.34 per year. Now I've set this up so all of my prices are showing VAT. So as long as I know that, I know exactly what I'm going to be paying. Click on proceed. That's going to then check to see if that domain is available. And if it is, we can then proceed on to the next stage. As you can see, my domain is available. So now I'm at the point where I can review and complete my order. Now I've already got an account with SiteGround, but I'm going to take you through this anyway, just so you can see exactly what you need to do if you're new to this particular service. Just simply drop in your email address, create a password and confirm your password, then go through and put in your information, your name, your country. If you have a tax or VAT ID, drop that in there. Then you have the payment options where you can go through and insert your card details so you can make your payment. And then finally, you've got the purchase information, which is going to go through and show you all the things that you've chosen and some additional options you can choose if you want to. So as you can see at the moment, we've got the hosting service is the startup plan. The data center is in the nearest country to me. So let's say in the UK, so that's perfectly fine. We've then got the period in how long we actually want to purchase this for. Now 12 months gives us one of the best prices. You can see that gives us the overall bill of £35.40 excluding VAT. However, if you set that to 1 month, you can see it'll change. You've got a £2.95 sort of trial fee and then a £9.60 setup fee. And if you go up to 36 months, you can see that'll give us the price of £106. So we're going to go for 12 months. We're going to leave it at that. Then you have the option for extra services. So you've got domain registration, which we chose because we want to have our own custom domain in there. That tells us how much that is. And if we want to add in anything like domain privacy or SG site scanner. Now the domain privacy, if you're dealing with the .com, this just stops anybody seeing the information that you put in there when you actually register this domain, and should then help stop you having annoying spam calls when your domain information gets out there. You can choose that if you want to, and that is £9 per year in this example, plus VAT. And then you've got the SiteGround site scanner, which is a monitoring service that just checks your website daily and notifies you if there's any problems being hacked or injected with malicious code and so on. If you want peace of mind, select that, tells you the price, and you can move forward. And then finally at the bottom, it gives you all the information about your order, your total, what you have, and then you can go through and say you can confirm that and you'd like to receive SiteGround special offers if you want to have that as well. Now, SiteGround regularly run special discount offers, so I'd recommend taking a look at the description below, and every time that's updated, I'll try to keep that up to date with any special offers that are available and applicable, so you can save yourself even a small amount of money. It's always a saving, so don't forget to check out the description just to see if there's any offers currently available for you. Now I'm going to go ahead, insert my details and create my new order, and then finish paying, and then we'll move on to the next stage where we can start taking a look at what's on offer inside the SiteGround dashboard. And there we go, my order was successfully submitted, and as you can see now we can jump over and proceed to the customer area, at which point we can then take a look at all the services, take a look at the domain, and we can start activating things like WordPress, SSL certificates, and all those kinds of good things. So let's just proceed to the customer area. That's going to ask us to log in. And there we go, we're now into our SiteGround dashboard. Now if you purchase a SiteGround sort of hosting plan a little while back, you probably would see a different interface. This is their latest version. Older accounts are going to be migrated over to this newer version, so you may see a little difference if you've got an older account, but just bear with it because it will update, and pretty much all the things we're going to do are pretty much exactly the same, so don't worry too much about that. Now before we start working on building our website, let's take a quick tour of the SiteGround interface. If we come up to the top, you can see home is where we currently are, and if you're new to this interface, I'd recommend taking a look at the tour of the SiteGround account. It'll take you through in this little video, introduce you to all the different facilities and tools that are available. If we go to the website section and open that up, you can see we've got websites. You can see this is the domain that we purchased. If we click on the link to the right hand side, we can go and take a look at that. Tells us what plan we're using, and again we can click to find out more information. If you want to add additional sites, we can do that, and depending upon the plan that you have, you may have the ability to go through and add new sites to that same plan, or you may need to purchase another plan to add another site in. Then we've got the collaborations, and you can see we have no collaboration set up at the moment. This is where we can sort of collaborate with other people on a website. Now we're not currently collaborating with anybody, so nothing will be listed there, but if we were, we'd see them all listed at this point. If we go to the services tab, you can see there's our startup plan. That's the hosting plan we currently have. If we want to upgrade that, like I said earlier on, we can click upgrade and then choose what our new plan is going to be. If we want to come in and manage that, we can come in and we can manage the details. You can see we've got the starter plan, what domain is on there, statistics for our site and so on. So because we have a certain number of sort of visits we can have a month and the amount of space, we can click on the statistics and go and take a look at what's currently being used. Now, obviously we've got a new plan, so there's next to nothing's going to be shown in there. So as your site gets moving forward and you start to build the site and so on, you will see information in there. And it's good to check on that just to make sure you're up to date with what's going on. If we come over then to domains, we can take a look at any domains we currently have purchased and associate with our site. So you can see we have our wpprowebsite.com. It's currently waiting for us to verify that we own this domain using the email account that we set up. So let's just do that right now. We should have received an email to the registered email account that allows me to go through, just verify that. So I'm going to open my email software up. I'm going to take a look, and there we go. There's the email address that's come in. So it's come in saying, dear customer, you recently registered so-and-so domain. We need you to confirm that you are the actual registered owner and this is the right email address. We then have to click on the approve link. Once you've done that, that will approve the domain. Now, obviously, if you just transfer the domain into your SiteGround account, you wouldn't have had to do this. But if you purchase it as part of your hosting plan, then just confirm it by using this simple option. There we go. Please verify your accounts. There's all the information. So I'm going to click verify. Once that's done, it now tells me thank you very much. You've now verified that you own this domain. And we are now ready to go back into our control panel for SiteGround. Now, even though we've verified our domain following the link in that email, we come back to the domain section under the services inside SiteGround. If we refresh this,
we'll find that the verification required will still probably be there. And the reason being is because it can take you 24 to 48 hours for this to be updated with the relevant sort of account. So don't worry too much about that. Come back in a day or two and you should find that's gone, as long as you confirmed everything. If not, obviously then you want to resend the email and follow that again if you need to. Okay, so there's the basics. We've gone through, we've seen the account we've seen the domain, we've confirmed it's our domain and so on. If you get any other emails coming through to you from SiteGround, read them carefully, make sure there's anything you need to do, you follow through with it to make sure that everything is completed and up to date. Obviously, if you are unsure of anything, then reach out to SiteGround and just ask them for any help you may need. So there's all the stuff we needed to do to get SiteGround set up. We purchased our hosting, our domain, confirmed it, all those kinds of things. Now let's get on to the fun part. Let's start by setting up our site. So we're going to click on Set Up Site from the Home section in the SiteGround dashboard. I'm going to click on there. That's going to go through then and allow us to do a few different things. We can choose to start a new website, or if we've already got a website, we can migrate our site. Now obviously, if we didn't want to do either of those, we could just log into our control panel and start and do whatever we kind of wanted to do. But this video is all about WordPress, and we're going to create a new website. If we want to skip it though, you could say skip and create an empty site. However, we're going to say start a new website. So we're going to click on select. That's going to open up all the options we now have for creating and starting up a site. So we've got WordPress, WordPress and WooCommerce, Weebly Site Builder, and other ones. We're only interested in WordPress at this point, but if you wanted to install WordPress and WooCommerce at the same time, you can choose that option. However, we're going to click on select for WordPress. Then we're going to go through and say, what's the installation details? What's the email address you want to associate with this account? And what's the password you want to use? I'm going to fill those details in a moment, and then we'll move on. So we'll simply drop in the email address and we'll generate a new password. That'll set it up as nice and strong. So what you can do is, if you want to, you can click on the little eye icon, then you can copy that. Obviously, make sure you put this information somewhere safe so you can log in once you set everything up. Now we've done that, let's click on continue. That will then go through the process and allow us to go and choose some other options. Do we want to add in the site scanner, which if you remember back to the beginning when we purchased our hosting account and everything, we had the option for site scanner there and also for the domain privacy. So you can see again, if you didn't do it at that point, but you think I'd like to do it now, you can add that in at this point. I'm going to leave those out. Like I say, this is just a demonstration, but if you think that they're worthwhile to you, add those to your website for peace of mind. Click on finish, and that's going to go through the process now of creating our site. Now, depending upon how busy the SiteGround server is, this could take up to 2 minutes to complete the website creation. So we're going to let this go through the process and we'll come back and then we'll move on to the next stage. So now that's complete, we can simply choose Access WordPress Admin. We'll come back and take a look at the Go to Site tools a little later. Let's just jump over to the dashboard of WordPress. So now we've logged into the dashboard, we can, if we want to, start this wizard, or we can exit this and go straight into WordPress itself. We're going to ignore this, we're going to click on exit and take us into the dashboard itself for our WordPress website. So you can see there's a couple of things we need to do. We've got a range of different things on here that is to do with the way that SiteGround actually set this up and the little wizard that's installed. So you don't need to keep this in here. If you want to, you can remove those completely. You can see we've got WordPress Starter is available, so if we want to use that, we can click on Start Now, and that'll then take us back to that sort of wizard where we can go through this. So if we close that by accident, we can go back in and start working through it. However, let's exit back out of that again. And let's just take a look at what we have. Now, this is a slightly different dashboard because this is configured to work inside SiteGround itself. So this is slightly different to what you'd expect to see in a normal WordPress install. However, we come over to the plugin section and go into install plugins. We can see what's been added in there. As you can see, we've got the SG Optimizer, which is the SiteGround Optimizer, and the WordPress Starter. If you don't want those, you can simply select those and just deactivate them and then delete them from there. And what that'll do is it'll take us back into a very vanilla version of WordPress. So let's just delete those and click on OK. That'll get rid of those. And if we now go back to the dashboard, we should now see that we're back into the normal WordPress dashboard that you'd expect to see when you install WordPress as normal. Now, choosing the site tools will give us a whole different range of options inside the SiteGround interface itself. You can see we've got some basic options available, and this kind of replaces what they used to have, which was the C panel, which is the control panel you kind of get with a lot of hosting companies. So this is a lot more user friendly, a lot more focused on making it simple and straightforward. However, pretty much all the tools are still in there should you need them. First thing you can do, you can come in and you can change for any domains. If you've got multiple domains, you can go in there. You've also got an option then for things like WordPress and so on. So if we take a quick look over there, you can see we've got some basic information, some statistics and so on. Like I say, new site, no information, but as your site starts to populate with information and visitors arrive, you'll start to be able to track all this information yourself. You can set up an email account if you want to. You've got sort of file manager, the app manager, where you can go in and install WordPress again, or any of those other options we had earlier on, like WordPress and WooCommerce or any of those kinds of things. So you could get rid of any WordPress copy and then just add a new fresh copy in directly using this. If we come over to security, and at the security settings, we've got SSL Manager, and this is where we can make sure that we've got an SSL certificate. Now, if you're not sure what an SSL certificate is, it just stands for Secure Socket Layer, and all that really means is that every time any data is transmitted from your website, that could be something like someone sends you an email from a contact form, right through to making purchases with WooCommerce, that information is encrypted, providing you have an SSL certificate on your site. One of the nice things about SiteGround is that you automatically get an SSL certificate as part of the actual plan itself. And as you can see, we've got the Manage SSL section at the bottom. It tells us this is the domain, this is the certificate we've got, it's active, and it expires on. We've also got options then if we click, and you can see we've got View Certificate, we can delete it, we can renew it, or we can enforce HTTPS. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to enforce HTTPS, and you can see in there we can choose to enforce it and external link rewrite. So if we enforce that, you can see that's now enforcing it for our domain. If we want external link rewrites, we can also do that as well. So you can click on there and activate both of those options should you want to. They've now been activated. So if we come back over to our site and refresh, we'll now see that we get the little padlock telling us that the site is now secure, and therefore we're using HTTPS. If we want to double check to make sure everything is in place, if we come to the settings and we come down to general, we'll find now that both the WordPress address and the site address are now set up to HTTPS. So everything is nice and secure, all set up for us directly inside the SiteGround dashboard. And that's how we go about setting up a SiteGround hosting account, tying in a domain to it, installing WordPress, making sure our SSL certificate is set up, and all of those other things are now in place, ready for us to start building any kind of website we want with WordPress.
So now that we've completed the process of setting up our domain, our hosting, and also applying the SSL certificate, and the final stage, which is installing WordPress, we're now ready to get into the fun stuff and start building things. So let's just jump back over into the dashboard of WordPress, install the plugins we need, the theme we need, and start building.
Now that we've gone ahead and got everything set up, we're now ready to start going in and creating our actual WordPress website. But there's a couple of things we need to do first of all, a little bit of housekeeping, shall we say, before we start building anything. First thing I'm going to do, we're in the dashboard, I'm going to come down to the settings section on the left-hand side. I'm going to come down to permalinks. And once we're inside the permalinks, we're going to just choose post name, and this is going to give us a much nicer URL. In other words, the address that we're going to use for any of our pages. And you can see it gives us an example. So we've got a nice layout, we've got our website address, a /, and then the name of the article, the post, the page, whatever we want. Originally, we would have had this, which makes no real sense to anybody. So that's the first thing we want to do. Once you've done that, we're going to come down and click on Save Changes. Once we've done that, we're going to come into the Post section and All Posts. And by default, WordPress will install a basic post and maybe a page or two. We don't want those, so all we're going to do is get rid of them completely. So we come on, we're going to click select them all. We're going to say we want to move to bin and click apply, or alternatively, we could just come down as only one and we could say bin. Once we've done that, that'll drop everything into the bin, and we can just jump over to the bin section if we want to and say empty bin. That's now got rid of any posts that we had on there. You can now go ahead and repeat exactly the same procedure for your pages. So we're going to come up to pages, say all pages, and just select anything that's in there that we don't want. Hit on move to bin and click on apply. And finally, just jump over to the bin and we'll say empty bin. This just means we start off with no pages or posts that we don't need as part of our site. So we've now got a nice clean slate ready to start installing themes, plugins, and all those kinds of things, and then start building our actual new site. Now that we've gone ahead and set our environment up, let's take a quick look at the type of site that we're going to create in this particular video. As you can see, it's a very simple, clean looking site, all to do with an architecture-based business. We've got the current projects we can take a look at. We can take a look at the team. We can also come down and take a look at the projects. We can go ahead and filter all of our projects based upon the type of project that they are. So if we only want to see the commercial, we can click see commercial, parks and gardens, or we can take a look at all of them. And then if we click to go and take a look at the actual project itself, you can see we've got a nice featured image, information about the project, and specific details on the right-hand side. And this information on the right-hand section is all custom controlled via advanced custom fields and then tied into specifically into a particular category type for our posts. So this doesn't limit us from creating additional posts where this information is no longer required. However, it just means that we can tag this in, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that as part of the video. Okay, so that's the site basically covered. Let's take a look at how we start building all the relevant different sections inside Elementor. I've gone ahead, hopped back over to the dashboard. We're now ready to go and install the different plugins and theme and so on that we need to start building things. So let's start off with the theme. Come to the appearance section on the left hand side. I'm going to come down to themes as the first option in there. And you can see we've got the 2019 theme installed. We need to go and replace that now with the theme that we want to work with. So we're going to click on Add New. Once we've done that, we're going to come to search our themes and we're going to look for Hello. Now the reason we're using the Hello theme is because we're working with Elementor Pro and we want to have basically just a blank theme that we can then build out all the relevant different pieces using Elementor Pro's theme builder. This is the perfect option for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to say install this. Once that's downloaded, we're going to go and activate it, and then we can start working with a nice blank theme. So let's activate that. We then got a nice simple clean site setup, and you can see it says thanks for installing Hello. Please go ahead and either download or install and activate Elementor. Now if I come over to the plugins section, I've already downloaded these to make things quicker. And all I need to do is activate those two plugins. Now I'm using the Elementor Pro that's already gone ahead and been licensed. I'm also installing the classic editor. You don't need to do this, and in all honesty it's entirely up to you because we're not going to use this in this particular video. We're going to be using Elementor. But I just prefer the classic editor over Gutenberg. So we're going to select all of these and we're going to come to the bulk actions and we're going to say activate. Click on apply and that will then activate those plugins and everything is now ready to start working. So we've got our theme installed. We've got our basic plugins installed. We're now ready to start creating the various different template files to start building out our website. Now that we've gone ahead and installed the plugins and the theme we want to work with, the next thing we're going to do is start building out the various different files we're going to use as part of our site structure. First, we're going to go in and create the header and footer because these are global templates that we're going to use throughout the entire site. To do that, very easy. Go to the left hand side over to templates and come down to theme builder, which is part of Elementor Pro, and the reason why we're using Elementor Pro for this particular video. In there you can see we've got theme builder, we've got header, footer, single and archive. Now if you had WooCommerce installed, you'd see additional entries inside here, but default you're going to see these four options: the header, footer, single and archive. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our header first of all. So we're going to come in and click on header. That will then take us in and say create your first header because nothing else inside this particular section has been created yet. So we say add new header. You can see it already picks up header being the template type that we're going to create. All we need to do now is give this a name. So we're going to call this default header and we're going to say create template. Now the reason I call it default header is because we can use this on every single page of the site, or we may want to use it on every page except for something like the home page where we might want to create a completely different header and assign that specifically to the home page. If we use default header, we know that's the default that's going to be used throughout, and then we could create another one called homepage header, and it creates clarity in our naming structure moving forward. It just makes our lives a little bit easier. So now that we've gone ahead and told we want to use a header and we want to create our template, you can see we're presented with a range of pre-designed layouts. Now if you want to, you can choose any of these and use these either as they are and just replace these sort of things like the menu structure and the logo with your own relevant details, or you can start with a completely blank slate. For ease in this video, we're going to go through and we're going to use one of the predefined layouts and we're going to use that as the starting point for our header and footer. But don't worry, we will be coming back in a little later on and taking a look at how we can create a custom template completely from scratch. Okay, so let's just choose one we think is going to be in keeping with the design that we're currently going to create. For this example, I want something really clean and simple, so we're going to just choose this option and we're going to say insert. That will then download any relevant files and create that header section for us. Now with our template downloaded, we can leave it as is if we want to, or we can come in and customize and tweak any aspect of this particular section. It's all done through Elementor anyway, so everything you can normally do inside Elementor, all the elements, all the widgets are editable, so we can do exactly that directly inside here. Now at the moment it's not showing a logo for us in the top left hand side. Don't worry, we'll address that a little later on when we go in and take some basic details and drop those into the Hello theme settings. For now, don't worry about that. What we do want to do though is make a little bit more space, because at the moment this is taking up 50% of the entire section at the top and I don't want that to be the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click to select this option. you can see we've got column width, and we're going to just set this to be 20. So that'll be 20% for the logo, and then we've got 80% for the navigation. So we've got a bit more room now should our navigation expand and need to grow in the future. We're also going to come in, we're going to select the widget itself, and you can see at the top now it says Edit Site Logo. So we've got the widget selected, not a row or a column or anything like that. Then we can come in and we can say what we want to do. We're going to set this to be alignment to the left-hand side. So this is now flush on the left-hand side of our header section, and our navigation is flush on the right-hand side. Okay, so we've got some basics in here. You can see we've got a nice shadow at the bottom. We can leave that as is if we want to, or we can completely remove that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up, we're going to select the entire section by clicking on this little blue pop-up at the top. The middle section allows us to just sort of select the entire section. Now what we're taking a look at on the left-hand side is Edit Section. So you can see what happens is when we're using Elementor, we can click on sections, we can click on widgets, we can click on rows and columns and so on. And then we'll take a look on the left-hand side and we'll have all the settings that are applicable to what we currently have selected. So this is easy to get to work with. And once you get to grips with it, you'll find you'll be doing this with sort of like second nature. Okay, so we've got that in place. What we're going to do is we're going to come over to Style, and we're going to come into the background option, and we're going to click Classic, and we're going to set a background color. Now, even though this looks like it's white at the moment, it's still actually transparent. So you can see, if we look at the color chip, we've got this little checkerboard pattern. That's telling us that this is completely and utterly transparent. I want this to be white, so when we do the rollover effect, when we set this to be a sticky header, we'll still see the background of the navigation when we roll over the various different elements on our page. And again, this will become evident when I show you when we put some content together on the home page, and you'll see the scroll in action. So we set that to be white for the background. We're going to come down to the border section, and we're going to come down to where we've got box shadow, and that's what's applying the shadow at the bottom. We're going to click on the back to default, which will reset this to its default values and remove that shadow for us. So click, that shadow now disappears. The final thing we want to do for our header section is come over to the advanced, and we're going to come down to motion effects, and in there you can see we've got sticky and it's set to none currently. We want to set that to be top. Now what that's going to do is it's going to take this top section and it's going to stick that to the top of the page. So when we scroll up, we'll find that all our information will go behind it and our navigation will sit nice and flush at the top, just making sure our navigation is always evident for everybody that's looking and viewing at our site. One more thing I'm going to do, and I come to the layout section, and we're going to set this to have a certain set height. So you can see we've got height is set to default. We're going to click on there and we're going to say minimum height. 90 is perfectly fine if we want to, but we can increase this, and you can see as we increase it, you'll see that it adjusts in real time on screen for us. So let's set it to 100, so we've made a slight alteration to it. I'm going to come back a little later and I'll show you how you can adjust this to make sure it looks good on mobile devices and tablets as well. We'll take a look at optimizing for mobile a little further down the line. Okay, so there's our header section done. It's sticky, it's got a background, it's got a nice logo on the left-hand side and a navigation on the right-hand side. Now if we click on Publish, we'll be taken over to the final stage, which is where do you want to display this template? We're going to add a condition, and the condition just basically says, when this condition is met, we're going to do something. So we're going to say, include entire site. So we're just saying, just use this on the entire site. We can also do things like add excludes on there. So we can click and add another condition, add a second condition, and we could say this is going to be exclude. So we could say whatever condition we want. So you can build these up and make them as complex or simple as you need to. Let's get rid of that and say include entire site, and we'll say save and close. That's now been applied, so every page on our site will have that applied to it. So there's the header section done. Let's go and repeat the process now and create the footer. To do that, we're going to come out, exit to our dashboard, and once we've exited the dashboard, we're going to come over and create our next template file. So we're going to go into Theme Builder a second time, going to click on there, let that load in, and once that's loaded in, we're going to come over to Footer this time. And once we're inside Footer, we're going to say Add New Footer. So the procedure is exactly the same, we're just choosing the footer over the header. And again, we're going to come in, we're going to say Default Footer. Again, that naming convention just makes my life easier moving forward. Hit Create Template, and that'll take us over then to the template browser where we can go in and load in a predefined template. And we're going to do that again. We're going to scroll down and find something that's in keeping, and this one looks pretty good. So I'm going to say insert that. We'll let that insert, and you can see that now drops that at the bottom of the page. And again, we can go in and fine tune and edit any aspect we want on this particular design. We leave it as is for now. We'll come back and revisit that a little later. Make sure that everything is operating on mobiles the way that I actually want it to. So we'll say publish for this example. Again, we're going to add our condition, include entire site, save and close. That's our header and footer are now in place. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump over and take a look at this on our test site, and we can see exactly what's going on. So now if we take a look at our homepage, you can see we've got our header section at the top, waiting for our logo, our navigation on the right-hand side, and then the footer section, we've got our navigation on the left-hand side, phone number, and some social links at the bottom. So those are in place, and now every single page will have that evident on there. I've hopped back over the dashboard. I'm now ready to insert my logo. Now, we could insert that directly into the template if we wanted to, and that's perfectly fine. What we also do though is we can come into the appearance section and down to customize, and inside the hello theme we've got some basic settings, and these are really basic settings. What we can do is we can come in and we can say site identity, and we can select a logo. So let's just set that select logo, and we're going to upload the logo we're going to use for this particular example. So we'll drag and drop that on. We'll add some alt text in there for good SEO practice, and we'll just say select. We're going to skip the cropping, and we'll see that will now replace that in the top left hand corner. So our logo has now been set up. Let's just simply hit publish, and that will now apply that to our site. We're now ready to start building some of the actual content for the site. So let's come back out of this. We're going to come back into our dashboard, and we're going to come over to pages, and we're going to say add new. So we're going to start off by creating our home page. So let's just name this home page, and we'll click on publish to make sure we save those changes before we start working with Elementor. So let's just edit with Elementor. That'll open up the page editor into Elementor, and we can start building out our actual page itself. The first thing we're going to do is get rid of where it says homepage, which is the title of this particular page. To do that, we come down to the bottom left hand corner under settings, and the first thing we have inside there, the general settings, we're going to come down to hide title, and we've now removed the page title from this particular page. Okay, so there's the first part done. Let's start create the actual content itself. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a new section. We're going to click to set this up to be one simple wide section. So there we go. We've got the very basics in place. Next we can go through and we can set exactly what we want. So the first thing I want to do is come down to the height setting. We're going to set a minimum height, and we're going to set this to be 650 pixels high. Now this is going to be used for the hero image. There's going to have a couple of different images to do with the architecture that we as a business have created. So we've set the minimum height. We're going to leave everything else as is. We're going to hop over to the style section. Now underneath the style section, we've got the background option, and we've got a new option inside Elementor 2.7. So if you've tried this on previous versions, or you're running an older version of Elementor, this is not the pro version, this is just the normal free version, you won't have this fourth option. So make sure you update to the latest version. Once you've done that, we're going to click to say the background slideshow. We're going to click on there. And you can see now we can go in and we can choose the images we want to work with. So we're going to click, that'll take us into the image media library, so we can start browsing or uploading images that we want. So that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to upload some images. For this example, I've already created 3 slider images. We're going to upload those to the server. And obviously with any of these, you need to make sure you put alt text into them. So I'm not going to worry about that in this video, but obviously when you're working with this, make sure you put alt tags in every single image you upload. Okay, so we're going to say create new gallery. We'll say insert gallery. That now sets those as the background images inside our slider section at the top. If we wanted to, we could also put a background overlay on this and put some text. But for this example, I want to keep this really classy, really simple, and just use a nice set of series of images at the top just to let this look good and let the architecture speak for itself. You can, if you want to, change any of the slide duration, the slide transitions and so on. So we could say we want to have this slide as opposed to being a fade, and you'll see after 5 seconds this will then transition over. You can set that up any way you want. Personally, I like the fade option, and you can just, like I say, adjust the slide duration and the transition duration. If you want to, you can apply a Ken Burns effect, and this will either zoom in a little bit or zoom out. So if you want that extra level of motion, you could easily use that. Let's just disable that. I like to have this clean and simple. So there's the first part done. There's our header section showing a range of images. And as you can see, as I scroll up, our header section at the top stays in place. So we've now got that nice navigation that stays there all the time. Next thing I want to do is create a nice 3-column section. So we're going to come down and we're going to click on add a new section in. I'm going to click 3 columns. We're going to add a little bit of white space on this. We're going to select it again by using this little sort of selection option at the top. We're going to come to the advanced tab, and inside there we're going to unlink these. We're going to set some padding on the top to 100 pixels and the padding on the bottom to 100 pixels. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I putting such a large amount of padding at the top and the bottom? Well, the reason being is when it comes to designing a website, one of the things that you want to focus on is plenty of white space. This allows the content to breathe without overwhelming the end user. So instead of putting tons and tons of content right up close to each other, give them breathing space, give them room, only put what you need in there, and you'll find you'll end up with a much better design. Now, if you want to find out more about creating better designs, then I've got a video which I'll link in the description below that's going to take you through a range of different things to make sure your website design goes to that next level as opposed to looking amateur or basic. So check that out if you want to learn more. So we now have our nice 3 columns. So we're going to put some content in. So we're going to come into the widgets on the left-hand side. First thing we're going to do is drop in a heading widget. Second, we're going to come back up and just drag in a text editor. So what we're going to do is we're going to style these, put some content in, and make sure that everything looks good. So first thing I want to do is just change the text it says here, and we're going to say visit our design studio. So as you can see, it looks a bit ugly at the moment, and it's not the nicest look in the world. Now, we can do a couple of different things at this point. If we want to, we can come in and we can assign a style to every single element on our page, and that's okay. But what it can do is it can be a little bit time consuming to do this on every single one. So there's a way of setting various different global options. Now, at this point in time, Elementor and Elementor Pro doesn't have global styling options over some very basic things, but we can tap into those right now, and then we can just make our life just a little bit easier. Now, to access those settings, all we need to do is come to the left-hand side to the top left, click on the little hamburger menu, and these are now settings that we're going to apply throughout the entire Elementor editor. So first thing we're going to do, come to default fonts. Inside there, you can see we've got primary headline, we've got secondary headline, body, and we've got accent text and so on. So what you can do is you can very easily come in and fine tune these to get exactly what you want. Montserrat is fine. We're going to change this to be 600, and you can see that immediately changes that. So this is a global change. If we change this to something completely different, let's just say we change that to Montaga, you can see that changes it. So any time that the primary headline is going to be used throughout our entire site, that font will change. So we're going to just set that back to Montserrat to 600. We'll set the next one for the secondary to Montserrat 400. Quicksand is perfectly fine on there, and Roboto, we'll leave that fine as well. So we've set up some basics. If you want to, we can come back out of this and we can go to default colors, and we can assign default colors, or we can pull in a default color palette. Now we'll leave those as they are because we're not really too worried about changing things on there for this point. But just knowing that they're there if you want to use them is quite an advantage. Okay, so we've set those basics up inside there. Now we can come in and fine tune anything we want on the page. So at the moment, this is set to H2, and that's perfectly fine. However, I'm going to change that to H3 because it's not that important. When you're working with HTML code, your heading 1 through 6 should be used not just for styling purposes, but also for SEO purposes and for the search engines to look at it and think, well, if the H1 is in there 10 times, then which one's the most important? H1, for example, the page title, what your page is actually about, should only ever be on the page once. Then the second level, H2, the third level, H3, and so on and so forth. Now then, let's go and tweak this particular design. So when you do, make sure we've got the heading selected, come out to style. We're going to change our color in there. We're going to set that to be a dark gray. You can see that now updates immediately. And once we've done that, we can change the typography for this. Now, typography settings have a couple of different things going on. You can see the family is set to default. Now, by default, unless we change this somewhere down the line so we can disable it, it's going to use the global font family that's being used inside Elementor, what we've just set. So this example is going to be Montserrat. If you wanted to change that, you can change that to any of the fonts that are available. However, we're going to leave that as is because we want that to be global. However, what we want to do is we want to change the font size on this. We're going to set that to be 16 pixels, the weight 500 for this example, and we're going to adjust the transform to be uppercase to make this all capitalized. So you can see we can quickly change things, and we can utilize both the global settings that we have as Elementor, and we can fine tune and tweak those so we can take advantage. Now, hopefully in a next iteration or very soon inside Elementor, we're going to have full control over global styling of fonts and things. So we get more control. We control the H1 through 6, all those kinds of things, as opposed to what we currently have now, which is quite limited control. Okay, so we're happy with that. Now, instead of just doing this again and again and again, we're simply going to come out of this. We're going to say duplicate. We're going to duplicate again, and we're just simply going to drag that over there. I'm going to drag that one over there, and then the same for these as well. So we're just going to duplicate these a couple of times, move those over, position them where we want. You can see it's just quick and easy. So now what we can do is we can come in and we can just change what each of the titles say, and we'll just change this to something like award-winning architect. And finally, we're going to come in and just put something else in there. We'll say this is British engineering. Okay, so we've now set our 3-column section. So we've got our header in place, we've got our 3 different styles of information about what the business does. We're now ready to drop in our portfolio section. Now currently we have no items inside the portfolio. We'll address that in a little bit when we put some content in. So let's just put the placeholder there ready for it. So we're going to come into our widget on the left hand side. We're going to cut the top. We're going to search for portfolio. We're going to simply drag and drop that over onto our page, and you can see that now puts the placeholder in there. We now have to do a couple of things. We can just choose exactly how we want things to look. We can set the number of posts, the image that's going to be used, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. What we need to do now is go ahead and create some actual content to put these in. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to click to update this page so we can save all the changes and all the work we've done so far on the page. When that's done, we're going to jump over and we're going to start building out our portfolio section. So to do that, let's just come out of this, exit back to our dashboard. And we're going to use the post section to create our portfolio items. Now, what we need to do is come out to posts. We're not going to go to the post section yet. We're going to come down to categories. Click on categories. You can see we currently have uncategorized, which is what you'll have whenever you install WordPress before you put any of your own categories in there. So what we're going to do is create portfolio as a category. I'll explain the reason why for this in a moment. So you say add new category. So you've now got portfolio. So what we can do is we can come into all posts and review any of the posts we currently have. However, we're going to come in and say add new. Once we're inside there, you can see on the right hand side we've got categories, and portfolio is one of those options. So what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to create a post. I'm going to tie that into the portfolio section, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can use that to link that through to the portfolio part of our homepage. Might sound complicated to start off with, but it's incredibly simple. So let's just create our portfolio entry. I'm going to come down, set our featured image, and I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm going to upload a range of images we're going to use across quite a few of the different posts that we have inside here. So I'm just going to drag in a range of different images so we can use. I'm not too bothered if we're going to duplicate some of these. They're just here for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to choose this one, and we say set featured image. So that's put our featured image inside there. Now, if we want to, we could use Elementor to create this, or we could just use the normal editor inside WordPress itself. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. What we're going to do is going to come in and we're going to say this is called Central Park, and we'll just say publish. And then what I can do, like I say, is I can come in, I can use Elementor if I want to build this out, or I can just use the normal editor inside here. For simplicity, we're just going to use the normal WordPress editor. So I'm going to drop in some text that I've created, and we're just going to update this again. Now, so we've created our first item for our portfolio. So we come back over into our pages, and we're going to say all pages, and we come back in, we say we want to edit our home page with Elementor. So you come back in there. Once that loads in, we scroll down, you can see that now pulls in our Central Park. However, it's not doing it in the right way, because if we just created something that wasn't related to a portfolio item, that would list in here as well. So that's not what we want. So what we need to do is we're going to come in to edit this widget, come down to the query section on the left hand side, and underneath there you can see it says include, exclude, and the source. So you can see we can choose posts, pages, and so on. So posts is correct. However, we just want to include by a term. So the term in this example is going to be portfolio. So we're going to just type in portfolio. We'll start typing that in. You can see it says categories, portfolio. We select that. So now we're limiting to only include items that are in the portfolio group. So it's very simple, but incredibly powerful. Then we can go through if we want to and adjust how this is actually going to display. So we can say the date. We can set all of those, or if we want to do once just in the sort of the last X amount of time, we can do that. So we can choose from day, week, month, quarter, year, and so on. We'll leave that to all. You can then order them by the date, title, menu, order, or random. And then you can also do the ascending or descending order based upon the order by above it. We can also ignore sticky posts if we want to. So if you have a sticky post as part of your setup, then you can ignore that if you want to, entirely up to you. So once we've done that, that's everything we want. We have filter bar and so on. We can adjust that if we want to, but we're going to leave that as it is. The layout, again, is also okay, except for one thing. The picture looks a little bit poor. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to be the medium-large version, and we'll see we get a much nicer, higher quality looking image. So once we've done that, we can now come over and we can adjust the styling. So you can see when we mouse over, we get this green overlay with the title. So let's just change that. Let's just come down to the item overlay option. We're going to come onto there and we're going to set this to be white. I'm going to drag the opacity down, and you see when we come over, we now get that white. However, the text doesn't display. So what we need to do is come into the color of that, and we'll set that to be dark gray or whatever you want. And you can see now that gives us a much nicer look. So we've created our portfolio, we've set up the way it wants to look and how it's going to interact, and we've gone through and set up exactly what information is going to be displayed in there. Final thing I want to do is just come back over to this, drop a heading above there, just so we've got something that says what this section's actually all about. And because this is about our current projects, we're just going to drop that text in there. So just select that, drop that in there, and just quickly style that as well. So this is H2, so that's perfectly fine because this is quite important. We're going to come down and we're going to say go to style, set our text color to again be that dark gray. We're going to adjust the size in this. We're going to leave the font family because obviously we want this to be in keeping with everything else on the site. We'll adjust the size on there to be something that's a little larger than these sections because this is, like I say, an important part of the actual page itself. So I set that to be about 24 and we'll just adjust the letter spacing just to open those out a little bit. There we go. So we've now created the basics for our homepage, and as we add more projects in, they'll now start to be listed inside this section. So let's just hit update. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and add 5 more projects in, and we're going to come back and take a look at how this looks. We're also going to take a look at then creating our actual project section and some of the other sections on the new site. There we go. There's our additional business entries now for our project. All we need to do is tidy things up a little because at the moment everything is a little too close together. All we need to do is come over, select the widget for our portfolio and come into style. Then we can adjust the column gap and the row gap. So we're going to set both of those to 30. And you see that now gives a nice bit of breathing room. And finally, we're going to select this section and we're going to come over to the advanced tab, uncheck for the padding, and we're going to assign 100 pixels spacing at the bottom. Hit update on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to come over and take a look at this. So we're going to come over, refresh our page, and we'll see now everything is in place. So our header section, our navigation strip, our 3 entries, and our portfolio. And if we click on one of these portfolio items, we click to go through, you'll see we end up with a page that looks a little underwhelming. So what we need to do is we need to go and style how that page is going to work. And to do that, we're going to create a custom template file, a custom single post file, specifically to display this the way that we want to. So let's take a look at how that's done. Come back over to Elementor, come back out of this and exit back to our dashboard. What we're going to do now is going to come back into the template section and come down to Theme Builder. And inside Theme Builder, we can go through and see all the templates we currently have, and we can also go in and create new ones. So this wants to be a single post archive. In other words, when someone clicks on this portfolio, we want to take them to our custom designed page that's going to be different to the other pages that we have. So we're going to choose single and say add new single. Once you've done that, you can see we have the option to choose the type, select the post type, and also name the template. So the name, we're going to call this default portfolio single. I always like to put in single and archive and so on as part of the name so I know exactly what it relates to. Select, we're going to come down, we're going to say we want this to relate to posts. So it's a single, is the template type, posts, and we're going to say name this default portfolio single. Create our template. Once we've done that, we can then come in and start building out with Elementor like we normally expect. As always, we get a range of pre-designed, pre-built layouts that we can use if we want to. However, for this example, we're not going to use one of those. We're going to close that down and we're going to start from scratch and build this out completely ourselves. So, first thing I'm going to do is we're just going to simply come in and we're going to set the image at the top. Now, if we take a look on the left-hand side, you can see we have 8 currently new features that are available to us in this widget section. Now, the reason that they are there is because we've chosen a template and we've chosen a single template. This now knows that we're going to be creating a single template. Therefore, we're going to want to use these different features to do with a single post. So in other words, we've got post title, excerpt, post content, featured image, and so on. They all relate to a post. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull over the featured image. We're going to drag and drop that over onto our page. And you see that immediately pulls in a featured image from the last post that we have. Now, if you want to, you could easily come down to the little settings icon, come to preview settings, and you can change this to anything you want. So if it doesn't show what you want to see, you can see we can choose where does the dynamic content get pulled from, posts, pages, and so on. And also, underneath that, when we choose the first option, this will change based upon what we choose. So if we choose pages, we'll have a different set of options below to what we see under posts. And what this means is we can easily come in and change this to something else. So if I say I want to change this to park and we'll search against that, you can see we've got main park and central park. These are both custom portfolios that I've created. We'll say central park, apply and preview. That will then update and show us the data from that particular post. So you can see it's very easy to pull this extra data in, incredibly easy to start referencing it. Now, once we've done that, we can click on the widget itself and we can start to control exactly what we see. Now, at the moment, it's saying image size is large. Let's just change that to say full. You can see we can put alignment on there if we want to. We can set the caption and where that caption comes from. And also, if we want to link this to something, we can do that. And again, we can come in and style this, and we could do advanced and all those kinds of normal things you'd expect to see inside Elementor. Let's scroll down. We're going to create a new section, and this is going to be a 2-column section. We're going to click to select that section, and we're going to come in and we're just going to apply a little bit of padding to the top and bottom. So again, we're going to do the same kind of thing. Set 50 pixels top, 50 pixels bottom. That gives us a nice bit of breathing space. Come back out to our widgets. What we're going to do now is we're going to pull in our post title. So I'm going to drag and drop that in there, and you see that will pull the post title in. Come back over, and we're going to just choose post content and drop that into there, and that will pull in the actual content that we have on our page. So you can see any images, text, anything whatsoever that's included on that page will now be pulled into our template. So finally, what we need to do is just style this to make sure everything is laid out the way we want. H1 is fine because this is the primary heading on the page. Style, we're going to come over, same again, set our text color, come down to our typography, and inside there we're going to set this to be a certain width. We're going to set the size on that. About 28 should look good on there. And finally, we're going to come down and set that to be uppercase. Actually, let's make that 26. That's looking good. Okay, so there's our new template. So we're going to publish that. As you can see now, we get those conditions like we had previously when we were working with the header and footer. However, we have different set of conditions we can use now. At the moment, it says include posts and all. That's not what we want. We only want this template to apply to our portfolio. So I'm going to click on there. And you can see posts would apply to all of the posts. However, if we say in category, click on there, we can now come over here and we can choose the category. So we know this is portfolio. So you start typing it in and you can see it now searches through, finds the category portfolios, click, save and close, and that condition has now been applied. So we come back over to our test page, and this was the template, which is the default layout for any of the single posts inside our current website. If we now come in and refresh that, we'll find this now uses the template that we've just created, and you see everything is laid out the way that we've set it up to be. So we've created our first dedicated template, applied a condition to it, and it's specifically only going to work inside the portfolios. So this is how you can get really creative to create really good looking templates and apply those only where you want throughout your entire site structure. So different sections, different categories, posts, pages, all those kinds of things can have dedicated layouts, dedicated templates to make sure everything looks as unique as you want it to. Now, if you're wondering why we have this blank section on the right hand side, that'll be addressed a little later in this video, where we take a look and adding in some unique data to our portfolio section that's going to have information about the location of this particular project, the builders that were involved, project partners, any awards that were won, all those kinds of things. Now, while that may be something you don't actually think is required on your particular website, you can ignore this section if you want to when we cover it and just follow along with the rest of it where we create our own templates, and you can lay these out any way that you want. However, when you want to get a bit more creative and add in those extra information and make something a little bit more unique, things like advanced custom fields makes that process considerably easier than you may think. No coding is involved, but it allows you to create custom content, and that's why I want to include it in this. Okay, so we've covered that, and we'll come back to that section a little later on. Next up, let's go through and create our new section on our site, which is going to be the projects, which is going to work in a very similar fashion to what we've got on the home page, where we can see the 6 projects. However, this is going to list everything and also allow us to filter it. So what we're going to do, come back into our dashboard. We finished with this template. We're going to come back out of this, exit to the dashboard again. We're going to come in now, and we're going to say we're going to create a new page. So we'll add a new page. We're going to call this project, and we're going to publish that, and then we're going to use Elementor to build this page layout. So let's just open that up, come to our project section. Do what we did before, come down to the bottom left hand corner, disable the page title so we've got nothing on there showing. I'm going to come in and we're going to say this is going to be a simple 1 column, 1 row I should say. Go to advanced, set our padding at the top of 100, our padding at the bottom of 100. So everything is now in place. Come back over to our widgets, and we're going to come in and search for our portfolio again and drag and drop that into our site. And you can see that now pulls in those projects that we already created. And again, we're going to come to our query section. Posts is fine, include, and we're going to come in and say term. And finally, this is portfolio. So again, like I say, this is just filtering out to only the posts that we want underneath the term, which is category of portfolio. Okay, so let's come back into our layout section. We're going to come into here. We're going to set that to be medium large. Come to our styles and we're just going to recreate all the different settings that we had previously. Now we could, if we wanted to, copy this over between the different pages. I just want to go through it again just so you can see how quick and easy it is to do all these different things. So again, white, we'll set that semi-transparent. Our text color is going to be dark. Mouse over and you can see within seconds we're already getting our styling up to speed, getting everything laid out the way we want. Next thing I want to do, come back to the content. We want to set this to be higher. So we're going to say for this example, 99. Not going to have that many projects on there, but we're going to leave it like that. Then we're going to come in and say filter bar, and we're going to enable the filter bar. And you see it says taxonomy, and we've got categories and tags. Now we could choose categories, but all of our projects underneath the portfolio category. We want to put filters in there. How are we going to do it? We're going to use tags. So let's click on tags. Now nothing's going to show up because we currently have no tags created. I'll show you how we can do that in a moment. So there we've got everything set up, styled the way we want. We'll hit update on that, and that's the basics of our projects page created. Now let's go back into each one of these different projects, these portfolio items, and set some tags. Come back out, exit to our dashboard. We're going to come back over to our post section and list all of our posts. And in there, we're going to come in and we're going to edit our first post. If we take a look on the right-hand side, we have a section called tags. We can use any kind of terminology we want in here, and we can then use that to filter information and use those in other parts of the website. So tags in conjunction with categories could be very powerful and a great way of organizing your content. So for this example, we know this is a park, so we're going to call this Parks and Gardens, and we'll say add. So we've now assigned a unique tag to this post. And we can use that, like I say, for the filters. So I'm going to quickly go through, add a couple more tags into each one of the projects. So we then have tags that associate the different projects in the type of project that they are. You're not limited to one tag. You could have multiple tags associated with any of these posts. We're going to stick to one just for simplicity. So let me come back to you in a couple of seconds. Once I've done that, we'll take a look at how we can implement this into our portfolio. And there we go. You can see our tags now associated with all of our different projects. So once we've done that, now we're going to come back into our page itself. So let's come back over to our pages and all pages. Once we're inside there, let's come in and edit with Elementor with the projects page. And we should now see that we've got the filters listed at the top. So you can see you've got commercial, industrial, parks and gardens. So we can now come in and we can click and we can set those, choose any of those projects based upon their different tags that are associated with them. So like I say, we've got a really nice simple way of setting things up where we can filter those out, and anybody can sort of live filter these to see exactly what they want. So the final thing I'm going to do is just style this text a little bit just to make it look a little nicer. So again, same things we got before, into styles, down to filter bar, and in there we can come in and do the typography. So we can say we want to set this to be quite lightweight. We're going to set this to be all uppercase, adjust the size on there, set something like about 12, should be fine. Let's make that a little darker. And finally, we'll just come in and say we're going to set that to be slightly darker, and then an active color we could set to be something like blue if we wanted to. So we've now set the styling inside there, and our portfolio section now is looking pretty sweet. So let's just update this just to make sure we save those changes. And let's just go through now and set up our navigation at the top because we don't currently have these linked in. So we're going to do, come back out, exit to our dashboard, come over to, first of all, into settings. I'm going to come down to reading because we need to set our home page to be a static page as opposed to what it currently is, which is to look at all of the different posts. So what we need to do, under the settings, under reading, we're going to come down and choose a static page, then set our home page to be home page and save our changes. Then we come back over and we'll come back into this. We can refresh our site. Click on our logo to take us back to the home page. You can see now our home page is set up and all the different sections are set up except for our navigation at the top. So let's just do that next. So we're going to come into appearance this time and down to menus. And once we're inside there, we need to set a few things up. First of all, main menu is perfectly fine. Primary, just make sure that's set so it knows exactly what is the main menu to be used. I'm going to get rid of this sample page. So we're going to remove that. I'm going to come in and choose home page and projects. Click add to menu. We'll reorder those by simply dragging and dropping, and we'll just come in and we'll fine tune this and take that off. So it just says home. So we've got our first couple of pages. We'll say save menu. We come back over to our site now and refresh. We'll find now that our navigation is set up at the top. So you can see, click on projects. That'll take us to our project section, and we can now go through and filter these in any way that we want. And if we click on any of these, it'll take us through to the custom template that we created and display everything already waiting for our little section on the right hand side. So we're about halfway through the process now of building our business website, and we've covered a lot of different bases. Next up, we're going to go through and create our team page, which is where we can just sort of put information about the team of people that are working inside our architect's business. There's multiple ways you could set this up, and what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of Elementor and its pre-built templates, and then we're going to tweak those to make sure it fits into the design that we're working with. So what we're going to do is come down and we're going to say we're going to add a new page. Once we're in there, we're going to name this team. I'm going to click on publish. Then we'll open up Elementor and we can start working and building out our page design. Like I say, we're going to use one of the templates. So first of all, as always, we're just going to get rid of that title. Then we're going to come over and we're going to click on add template, come up to the block section. And from there, we're going to come in and we're going to type in team. And that will then filter this out to show us just the team-based templates. Now, like I say, you can use this as the basis. You could use any of the sections as the basis if you like the way it looks. And then you can customize and fine-tune to get exactly what you want. So we're going to look through to find something that we quite like. And I think this one, which is nice and clean and in keeping with the design that we're working with. So we'll insert that into our page, let it download all the assets. And there you go. You can see now it's pulled that information in for us. So we can see that currently it's kind of saying what we want it to say, but obviously the styling doesn't kind of fit in with what we're doing. So what we're going to do, we're going to select this section at the top, which is our heading, making sure that we're using a good HTML tag for that. H4 is perfectly okay, but let's just change that to H1 because this is the only sort of heading section on this page and it relates to exactly what the page content is about. So that's perfectly fine for good practice. Next up, we're going to come over to style and we're going to go into our text. We're going to change that to the dark gray that we're using. We're going to reset this so it picks up our basic styling from our default font. You can see that's perfectly fine. However, all we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to change that from the weight that it was, and we're going to set this to be transform uppercase. And let's just adjust that size because at the moment it's a little on the large side. So let's just take that down to something like 35, 36, somewhere around there. And what we're going to do is make sure that our spacing and everything is all okay as well. So let's just come in into our advanced section. As you can see, we've got 50 pixels on the bottom. Well, let's just get rid of that on there. And we're okay with the settings on here. So let's just come back up to our section, come into advanced, and there we go. 100, 100 on the top and bottom is perfectly fine. That, like I say, is in keeping with the design that we're working with. Okay, so we've styled our header. We've got the content in there. So what we want to do now is drop in some images for the people that are working inside the company. To do that, we'll come back over to our widgets on the left-hand side. We're going to grab the image widget and we're going to drag that over and position that where we want it to be. Once we've done that, we can now come in and we can choose the image that we want. So we're going to say choose image. Now, obviously, we don't have anything uploaded at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and upload the photographs that I've got for what we would consider to be the members of people that are working inside our team. So we'll let those upload a second. Once they're uploaded, we can start tagging those into the relevant sections on the design. And there we go. So this is fine. So we're going to say this is the first person in this. We'll say insert that. You can see that now immediately pulls that information in. So what we can do now is, and I want to show you this is quite useful. We're going to come in and we're going to style this first element. We're just going to click on this section, making sure that everything is in keeping the way that we want. So typography, default is fine. We're going to adjust the weight of this so it's a little bit more in keeping. Adjust our letter spacing, for example, so we can just fine tune that to get what we want. And the same then, just making sure that everything is okay for the styling on these different things. So obviously the text color is too dark on there. And if we come into this, we can just check, yep, everything looks okay on there. We're going to grab this section underneath now, which is obviously just filler text, which you would replace for the content that you would actually want to place in here about this individual. However, what we're going to do is we're going to just choose this and we're going to say we want to make this a little darker because it's a little too dark, sorry, a bit too light for what we want it to be. So that's okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to come into the typography settings and we're just going to make that a little bolder. And we're going to adjust the line height ever so slightly just to make sure that's all in keeping. Now, obviously, this isn't Amanda Lee, so we're going to just change that name on there. And we'll just call this Albert Lee for no other reason than that's the first name that popped into my head. Okay, so we've created our styling. We've set what we want, but obviously all the rest of the sections on here are not the same. So how can we get around that without having to go through the process of setting those settings on every single one? Well, Elementor gives us a really nice, simple way of doing that. We can select any of these widgets, right-click, and we can choose Copy. Once we've done that, we can now come over any other element and choose Paste Style. And you can see by doing that, we immediately apply that style to those relevant different sections across our design. Now, obviously, it would be so much nicer if we have global settings to apply to all of our elements inside, and hopefully, like I say, that's something that will be coming to Elementor soon. So maybe when you watch this video, that option will be available, and therefore you can just basically bypass what I'm doing, which is copying and pasting these styles over to the relevant sections of our site. But obviously, if you don't have tons and tons of different sections, it's not the end of the world. So what I do now is I'm simply going to duplicate this image. I'm going to drag that over then to the next column. And I'm going to quickly go through, change the images over, duplicate this, and then we'll wrap up our section on our team members. And there we go. We've now set up all the different team members on our site. So the final thing we need to do if we were doing this for real is come through to these different icons and set those up to link through to the relevant profiles and style them if we need to. So if we click on this widget, you can see that opens up the social icons option. We can come in and change any element on there, including the type of social media network that we're talking about, the links through to the relevant sections. Under the styling, we can come in and we can set any kind of styling we want on there. So we could change that over to be any color. So we can set those to a lighter color, or we could go for green or blue, whatever you kind of want to do. So we'll set those back to black so we don't have to go through the process of setting them all up. Okay, so that is our team page. So let's just update that, and let's just come in and then set that link through into our navigation. So we're just going to exit the dashboard, come back into our appearance, down to menus, and once we're inside there, we've got teams and projects and homepage and so on. So let's just say teams, add to our menu, position that as the second element, hit save changes, and we come back now over to our site, and we'll just come back to our homepage. You can see now we have the team section. We click to go into there, and we'll see there's all our team members, all set up nice, looking great. And a lot quicker because we utilized one of the predefined templates and then customized it to meet our needs inside the design we're working with for our website. So the final page I want to put onto the site is a contact page, because obviously as a business you want people to be able to contact you. So we're going to come into our pages section and click add new like we've done before, and we'll just set this to contact. Publish that page, and then we'll open Elementor up. Now, when you come to creating contact pages, there's tons of different things you can do in here. You can drop in sort of maps to show you exactly where the business is located, contact forms, multiple contact forms, pop-ups, addresses, all manner of good things. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward. We're just going to put in an image, some contact details, and we're going to put in a contact form. So let's just get rid of the page title like we've done before. And once we've done that, we're going to come in and we're going to say we're going to add in an image at the top. I'm going to create something very similar to what we did on the home page, but obviously this is just up to you how you want to do this. We're going to set this to be a height, minimum height. We're not going to set it to be as big as the home page because obviously that's not the focus of this page. But what we are going to do is come up with the style into our background, and we're going to come in, we're going to choose a couple of images like we did right back at the beginning. So we'll just choose these two images, create our new gallery, insert that, and there's our new section at the top of our page. Next up, we're going to come in and we're going to choose to put in a 2-column section. Going to add in a little bit of padding at the top and bottom, and you'll see that this is one of those things that once you've kind of got used to doing the design work, when you're working with a site, you are just doing very similar things over and over again. We're adding the same padding in, we're just creating sections, dropping in widgets, all those kinds of things. And this is fundamentally the beauty of working with a page builder, a visual page builder like Elementor. Once you get used to it, it's very, very simple and straightforward. Okay, so first of all, let's just say we're going to have a particular person you can contact inside the company. And to do that, we're just going to put in their details, their sort of photograph kind of thing. So what we're going to do is come back over to our widgets on the left-hand side, come down and choose an image from the options, drop that in there, come in and choose the image, and we'll just say this particular person is going to be the contact you'll have if you contact the company. Next up, we're going to say we're going to drop in a contact form. So we're going to find the contact forms, or the form, I'm going to drop that in there. Now you'll see at the moment it doesn't look particularly great because everything is aligned to the top and the picture itself is considerably larger than the actual contact form. Well, first things first, let's make this image just a little smaller. So we'll drag this over, we'll set it to something like 35% and 65%. Now, obviously, you could be perfect with this if you want to. I'm just eyeballing it, and you can see we get little markers on it to show us exactly what's going on. So that's looking a little better. Now, what we can do is we can select this section, come out to the layout option, and inside there we can specify how we want the vertical line to work. Click on there, and we're going to say we want to use middle. And now everything will align to the middle, which means that because this image on the left-hand side is bigger than the contents of the right-hand side in this particular view, we get to see that aligned to the center and all of the image then on the left hand side. Next up, let's come in and let's just start styling out the widget for our contact. So we're going to just click on this. We're going to do a couple of things. First, we're going to come into advanced and we're going to add some padding all the way around to give it some breathing space. So you can say 50 pixels all the way around. And once we've done that, we're going to just come in and choose the actual form itself, come up to the content, name, email, message, and that's perfectly fine. If we want to add something else in, like a phone number, for example, we say add an item. We can come in there, we can choose what we want it to be. We'll say it's a telephone number. We'll just say tel, and we'll put a placeholder of tel for telephone. Is it required? Well, we can specify whether we want them to supply that to us or not. We'll say that's not a problem if they don't want to. We're going to come down, we're going to choose an input size, we'll say medium, just to give them a little bit more breathing space. And we're going to take off the labels because we've already got placeholders in there, so we don't need to have those labels in there. So let's just go through and style this a little bit, then I'll show you how easy it is to start working with the forms. First of all, let's just put the form name and we're going to say contact us, so we know exactly what form we're working with, and let's just move that telephone number up. You can see everything is drag and drop, so it's all very simple and straightforward. Jump over to the style section. Let's just put in a little bit of extra space in between these rows just to open things up a little bit. So that's looking a little better. So now what we can do is we can tweak any other element we want. So if we come down to the field, for example, we can say we want to control the outline of our field. So we can say the text color inside there, the background color, the border color. Let's just choose our border color and make that a little lighter. There we go. And then we'll come to our text color and we'll say we'll make that a little darker. There we go. And if we want to, we can come to the button section. We'll change the background color on this and we'll set that to be blue. We'll come in and text color we'll set to white, even though it's kind of defaulting to white. And then the typography, we'll leave that to be the default, so it picks up whatever default fonts that we use as part of the site. However, what we will do is we'll make that a little bolder, and we'll also make it uppercase, so it kind of ties in with a lot of things we do, and make it a little larger, not too large. We'll go for something like 16, and we'll go for 400 on there. And finally, we'll just open up the letter spacing a little bit, just to give it a bit of breathing room. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is just get the border radius and set that to 0. I don't want any borders on there. I want it to be sort of squared off, not rounded. And I can do the same on the fields if I want to. We've got border radius, even though nothing's in there, we can set that to 0, and now everything is nice and squared off. Finally, we're going to come back to our content, and because of the size of this, I want to make it a bit smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the name, we're going to leave that full width, but email we're going to set to be 50%. And telephone number, we're also going to set to be 50%. And they'll now line up next to each other, which just makes the form just look that little bit neater. Okay, so the form is done. We've inserted that. Now we need to link this through to tell it what to do. To do that, what we're going to do is we're going to come over into the submit button. And you can see we can set anything we want inside there, including the size of it. So that's all well and good. Action after submit. When that submit button is clicked, what do we want this form to do? There's a lot of different actions we're going to assign, and we don't have to limit this to just one action. We can have multiple actions. So you could have someone signing up to this, which would send an email and also subscribe them to a newsletter, something like MailChimp, MailerLite, or ActiveCampaign, any of those kinds of things. So what you can do, click on there, you'll see all the different options you have are listed. So we're going to keep this to just email. But when you choose something else, let's say, for example, you choose MailChimp. You'll see once you choose another action, it will then open up another section inside the Actions After Submit section under the Edit form, and you can see MailChimp as an option. So let's just come back in, we'll delete that from there, and we'll just leave it to email. Then it says, what's the email address you want to use? So you put the email address that you want to send the form to. So obviously this is a contact from your website. You're going to have a sort of contact and info email account that's going to be associated with it. Next, you can put in the subject that you want to be sent as part of the email. All fields will transmit all the information you can see inside our form, plus some additional things which are listed down below, things like the date, the time, the page URL, and so on and so forth. Then you've got the from email, the from name, and the reply to email. Now you can set these up however you want. Obviously, when it comes to the reply to, you want to reply back to the person that sent you the email through this form. So what I would say is you want to change that to the email field. And if you wanted to CC or BCC this into anybody, any other email addresses, you could drop those in there. We're going to take off things like the credit, the remote IP, and the user agent, because these are things that I don't want on there, especially things like the IP, because you don't want to sort of get problems with GDPR where you're kind of collecting sensitive data. So it's just worthwhile limiting this to just get only the things that you need and not extraneous information that you don't need. So that's the email form setup. Under additional options, you can see we've got some things like the form ID and apply a custom message if you want to. So you can set a custom message once the form's gone. Alternatively, what you could do is come back to the add action and you could say redirect. So what you could do now is under the redirect, you could send this. So once someone sends a form, you could send it to another page on your site that thanks them and does something else. So you might have, if you're a shop, for example, you might want to have an upsell once someone's bought something, do something else, you know, those kinds of things. So that redirect is something that's very useful if you want to have a more personalized thank you after the submission of the form. We'll take that back off and leave it really simple and straightforward. So we've now created our contact form. Like I say, if you wanted to add maps and things in, you could do that very easily. There are widgets for almost everything inside Elementor. Let's just update this. We've created our contact page. We can come back out of this now, exit to our dashboard, and just do the final time. We're going to come into appearance and menus, and we're just going to come down and we're going to add that contact in. Once we've done that, you can see contacts at the end. We'll save our menu, jump back over to our page, and refresh. And we'll find now contact is added to the end of our navigation. We click and go in there, and we now have our nicely styled contact form all set up with our animated header at the top. So looking pretty good. Now we're getting quite close to the end of this video, but we still have two things we need to do. The first is to go in and add that advanced custom field section in. So like I say, this is optional if you want to skip past this and go to the final part, which is all about ensuring that all of your pages are mobile responsive. You can do that. Like I say, this is purely optional. So as you can see, the page template is set up and we've got this gap on the right hand side that we need to address. Let's come back into our dashboard and come down into plugins and we'll say add new. And from there, we're going to just do a search for ACF, which is Advanced Custom Fields. Once we've done that, we're going to scroll down to find the entry that we want, which is the Advanced Custom Fields, and we're going to say install now. Now ACF, Advanced Custom Fields you're seeing right here, is completely and utterly free. However, if you want to tap into some of the advanced functions like galleries and so on, you are going to need to purchase the Pro versions license, which is an incredibly cheap price and also means that you have this as a lifetime thing. So if you want to get more into ACF, and there's a ton of videos in this channel you can take a look at to see some of the things you can do, you can check out the details in the description below and in the link. So if you want to find out more, take a look at that. But like I say, for this video, we're going to keep to using the free version. So you can see we now have Advanced Custom Fields installed and activated, and on the left hand side we have a new section called Custom Fields. We're going to come in and we're going to say add new, and we're going to create a new field group. Now don't worry too much about what's going on with this. I've got videos that, like I say, will take you to a lot more detail about all these different steps, but what I will do is just show you the basics. So we're going to put this and say project details. Once we've done that, before we start adding our extra fields in, let's set the conditions to when this is going to be used. So you can see we've got rules. When are we going to use these custom fields that we're going to create? We only want to apply these when someone creates a portfolio entry. If they choose any other kind of post, it's not going to show these extra fields because they don't relate to it. So what we're going to do, post type is not what we want. What we want is post category. So we say post category is equal to, and you can see portfolios come up because we only have portfolio and uncategorized. Portfolio has content in there. So we're going to say portfolio. So now anytime someone selects portfolio as the category inside the posts, they will then see and unlock these extra fields that we're going to add in. Now speaking of the extra fields, all we need to do is come to the top and start adding those in. So we're going to say add field. What we're going to do is put in location. You see it'll automatically pre-fill in the next stage. Then we're going to say the field type. Now most of these are going to be text fields because all we're doing is putting some extra text information in. Is it required? Any instructions we want to apply? Well, it's up to you whether you want to set these to be required. I would say that not everything that we're going to have in this portfolio would be sort of included. So it's best for this example to leave those sort of as not required. Then you've got things like placeholder text, prepend, append. So these are the different things you can put at the beginning or the end of the entry fields. So if you're working with monetary values, which we will do in a moment, you could put a pound sign at the beginning so people can see that you're working in pounds or dollars or whatever you kind of want. So there's the first one. Next, we're going to come in and we're going to say we want to add another field. So let's just close this down, add a new field. And we're going to come in and we're going to say builder. Again, you see field name automatically fills out. Text for the field type is perfectly fine. And we're going to close that down. We're going to just say we want to have another field in there. We're going to call this project partners. add field for text. That's perfectly fine. And we're going to add one more in. Now, obviously, you could add as many as you want in, depending upon what you're doing. We're going to keep this, like I say, pretty straightforward. So let's add one final field in, and we're just going to call this project value. Okay, that's fine. Now we're going to leave this as text. We could put numbers in here, but let's just say, for example, you wanted to put 2.5 million. You don't want to have to write out 2.5 million. You might want to put just 2.5 M for million. It's a kind of abbreviation people are used to. So I'm going to say I want to leave this as text, but you could set it to any of the field types that you want that's applicable to what kind of data you're putting in there. So there's our 4 custom fields. What we're going to do now is click on Publish. And once we've done that, we're going to jump back over into our post section and all posts. Now, I'm not going to create a new one. I just want to show you something. So if I go to Add New, and you can see on the right-hand side, we've got our categories. Now, at the moment, those custom fields are not evident because we haven't triggered the sort of condition that we've set up to show them. If we choose Uncategorized, nothing will display. However, if we choose Portfolio, you'll see now those project details open up underneath. This kind of holds true. Let's just say we disable that. We choose Uncategorized and we choose Portfolio. Well, you can see that enables, because obviously we've chosen Portfolio. Uncategorized is another option which doesn't have this associated with it. So it's just something to bear in mind. So Portfolio is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back out of this, go to all posts, and we'll just say, let's go into this particular one. We've set this up to be a portfolio. So if we scroll down now, we can come in and we say, well, the location is going to be Cardiff. The builders, we'll just say PJ Builders Inc. Project partners, we'll just say Bill and Co. I have no idea who these people are. Project value, let's just get the extra L in there. Project value, and we're going to say 2.5 M for million. Okay, so we'll update that. We've now created those custom meta pieces of information and assign those. Next thing we need to do now is go back into our template and show where they can be actually displayed. What we're going to do, come over to our template section, down to theme builder. I'm going to come into our portfolio single. I'm going to edit with Elementor. Once we've done that, we let the Elementor editor open up, scroll down, and now in our right hand section, we can start adding that content in. Linking your ACF data through into Elementor Pro is pretty simple and straightforward. Not all of the fields are covered perfectly, but most of them are. So creating content like this is very simple. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to come over to the left hand side. We're going to drop in an inner section. And this is purely just to do with styling. We want to be able to put an outline on this and allow some breathing space and make it easy to work with. We're going to get rid of one of these columns. So we're going to just delete that from there. We can say delete. So we're going to then come up and choose this column. We're going to say column gap. We're going to say no gap. And now we've got an inserted, nested sort of section, which we can start putting our data in. First thing we're going to do is just drag in our first heading, which is going to be location. We're going to set this HTML tag to H6 because while this is important data, it's not vital data. You can see we've got add your heading here. So we're going to just drop in there. We're going to say location. And once we've done that, we're just going to quickly style that, and then we can duplicate that in a moment. So come back in, we just choose our style, we just choose our typography, all the kind of things that you've seen me do a dozen times now on this particular design. And we're just going to set the size on there to something along the lines of about 12. That looks pretty good. Okay, so that's that set up. So we've got our first section in there. Now we need to put the dynamic data in. Now to do that, there's lots of different ways we could work. But for this example, we're just going to come in and keep it really simple and straightforward. We're going to duplicate this heading. So we're just going to say duplicate, put that underneath. But this time where it says location, we're going to come up just above that and it says dynamic. We're going to click on this little database dynamic icon, and that gives us a ton of data we can pull in from both WordPress and also advanced custom fields. So you can see things like the post date, post excerpt, and so on are available directly inside here. What we want to do though is scroll right the way down to ACF field, click on there, and that'll open it up. Now, unfortunately, nothing is being pulled in because even though we said an ACF field, we haven't told Elementor Pro what field we want to reference. What we need to do, click on this little wrench icon, click on there, and you see that opens up the key. Click, and there's all the fields that we just created inside Advanced Custom Fields. So we choose location. Give it a second or so to load that data in, and we should then find that it'll sort of pull in the data, the relevant data. Now, at the moment, this particular example doesn't have any data associated with it. So what we can do is come back down to our settings, into our preview settings. Again, we just need to choose the post now. So we can see geo, because we know that's the one that we want. So we want geometrics, apply that and preview. Scroll down, you can see there it now pulls in the data for the location. What we need to do now is just style this a little differently so it stands out and adjust the spacing on this. So we're just going to select this widget. We're going to come over to our style tab. We're going to come into our typography and we're just going to choose a slightly lighter weight. So there we go. That now sort of sections that out. And what we can do is we can come up to the advanced section, come into our margins, and we can set a negative margin at the top of this. So let's just say we're going to try something like -20. That looks pretty good. So you can see now that butts that up close just underneath the location section, and that's now our first of our meta fields put in there. So what we need to do now is just basically duplicate that across the board. So we're going to do the first one. We're going to come into our location, we'll duplicate that, and we'll just drag that down underneath. Now if you find it difficult to drag things down, one of the things that's really nice about Elementor is we've now got the navigator. So if we come to the left hand side and click on the navigator, that'll open up this little pop-out window. And you can see all of our different sections are now listed inside here. So we can easily come through, find exactly what we want, just digging down. You can see there's our 3 headings, which is what we've got on the right-hand side. So now what we can do is we can grab the second heading, because everything you see on here is laid out exactly where you can see on the right-hand side. So we can grab this one, drag that down underneath, and you can see now location drops underneath. We can now change that from location, and we can just change that to builder. Do the same again, so we can come to the second section, which you know is right. We can right-click on this. We can say duplicate, and we can drag that down underneath. So you can see we can use this method of using the navigator, or we can do it directly inside the editor itself. So all we need to do now is come back over to the dynamic section, scroll right the way down, make sure ACF field is selected, choose the little wrench icon, click, and we can say this time we want builders. We're also going to open up the advanced section. So let's just say, for example, we didn't include a builders because for whatever reason, there isn't a builders associated with it. What we can do is we can just say before and after and fallback. Well, fallback, we're just going to put in the little minus sign. So if anybody sort of doesn't include any content in there, we'll just have a minus sign there that'll just say that there's nothing actually associated. So what we're going to do now is just do exactly the same thing on our location section, come back over to our content, click on the little wrench, down to advanced, under fallback, put the minus sign in or the period sign in there, and we are done. So I can now repeat that several times until we've got all of our different custom fields inside this particular right-hand section. There we go, all added. Now the other thing you wanted to just show you is you can see we've got 2.5 M for the project value, but we know it's in pounds, but nobody else does. So how can we get around that? Well, making sure that's the sort of section that's selected, we're going to come over into the left-hand side, back into our ACF fields, click on the wrench icon again, and come down to advanced, and before, we're just going to put in there the pound sign. And there we go. You can see now that puts in this. Anything you want to sort of prepend the data you put in there, the live data you put in before. If you want to put something else afterwards, you can put in after. So it's a very easy way of doing things. Close this down. We've now basically set everything up. All we need to do is just quickly style this to make sure it looks the way that we want it to. And to do that, we're just going to simply select this inner section. We're going to click on that. We're going to come up into advanced. We're going to add in 20 pixels of padding all the way around that. We're going to come into the style section, into border. And from there, we're going to choose a solid border of 1 pixel. And we're going to just choose a nice light gray, just so we get a little border separating things out from there. And you can see there's our border separating everything. Once we've done that, we're going to click on update, and we've now added in our advanced custom fields, our dedicated data specific to this particular project. So we're going to come back over into our portfolio. We're going to refresh that in our project section. We're going to choose the actual relevant entry, which is geometrics. Click, and you can see there's our custom section on the right hand side. So all I need to do now is go back in, put the custom data in for all our other entries, and then we see that on every single site. So that's the ACF, the Advanced Custom Fields section. The final stage of this now is to go through the process of making sure everything looks the way you want it to across tablets and mobiles. So let's take a look at how we do that now. Let's start off with our project detail page. This is our single page. So what we're going to do, if we come over to the left hand side at the bottom, you can see we've got responsive mode, and this allows us to switch between desktop, tablets and mobiles. So we click over to tablet view. You can see now this shows us what it's going to look like on a tablet. So it gives us a good example of what it looks like, and you might think, well, that looks perfectly fine, and you'd probably be right. However, what does it look like on a mobile? Well, let's switch over to mobile view. And as you can see, everything looks okay. The header could do with being shrunk down a little bit, and the text might be a little bit too big. So let's just scroll through just to make sure everything looks okay and we're happy with the way that everything is lined up on there. So it looks okay. However, like I say, we can adjust anything we want. So if you say, well, we could do with a bit more padding around this, a bit more space, we can select this column. And you can see once we do that, we now get opened up 3 different icons for various different aspects of our design. Desktop, tablet, mobile. So we can set any values on here. Now these will flow down. So if we set a value underneath the actual desktop and we didn't change it on the tablet and the mobile, that's the value that would be applied. The same goes that if we didn't set a value on the desktop, or we did set a value and we moved over then to the tablet and set a different value, that value on the tablet would flow down to the mobile. And again, we could, if we wanted to, set a different value for mobile. So each of the 3 could have their own dedicated values. So let's just do that. Let's just say we want to jump back over into mobile view. I'm going to come into there. I'm going to come to the advanced section. And again, you can see we get these icons that allow us to control and fine tune exactly what's going on. And let's just say we want to add in just a little bit more padding on the left and right, just to give us a bit of breathing space on mobiles. So under right, we'll just say 15, not 150. And on left, we'll just say 15 as well. And you see now that applies it to our mobile view and gives us a bit more breathing space around that particular section. So that now looks just a little better. We've got a bit more room against the edges. So other than that, that particular layout looks pretty good. I'm quite pleased with that. I like it. So we'll update that to apply those different style settings to the mobile view on that particular template. Now, once we've done that, we're going to come out of this and we're going to take a look at the home page and see how that looks. So come back into the pages, all pages, and just choose our home page. Now again, one of the nice things with Elementor is it's set up in such a way that unless you change things drastically, it will kind of work right the way across the board on the different devices pretty well. You can fine tune and tweak, but usually you don't have tons of different things to do. So let's just come over to responsive. Let's try tablet mode. Things don't look too bad on there. You can see things move around now. Instead of being 3 wide, we now got 2 wide, so that looks tidy. And you know, most things look okay. We could tweak a few bits and pieces if we want to. But let's just jump down to the mobile. And okay, this looks okay, but I don't like the way the text is now sitting to the left, whereas on a tablet it looks okay and on a desktop it looks fine. On a mobile, I want to put those so they're centered. So we're going to click on the heading for this and we're going to choose the alignment. And again, you can see anywhere you see these 3 symbols means that you can set different values for different devices. Do the same then for our content. And if we want to, we could easily just right click, copy, right click, paste style, right click, paste style. Right click copy, right click paste style, and you just save yourself a ton of time just making those tweaks. So you can see that's all done. Now this, for example, we want to do the same thing here. We're going to adjust that to be centered. However, we want to change the size of the text as well. So we come into style, into our typography, the 3 symbols are there. So now we can adjust this to make sure it looks good on a mobile. It isn't too big. We can adjust the line height if we want to. So you can see we can fine tune all these different elements to make sure everything looks good. And as you can see in the footer, there's a few things we need to do in there. But other than that, the home page is looking pretty good. We could, if we wanted to, come into the heading section, come into layout, minimum height, and we're going to set a smaller minimum height because obviously we don't want to take up all that real estate on your mobile device. Same goes down for this section. We can say let's come into that, and we're going to say we're going to put some different padding values in there. So we'll just say we'll put 20 in there. Just tidies things up a little bit, and we could, if we wanted to, change the font size and so on. Other than that, that's looking pretty good, so we'll update that page. Now finally, we're going to come back out of this and we're going to go into our templates for our navigation at the top, and we'll make a fine tweak on that. So again, into templates, into theme builder, default header, edit with Elementor, and once we've done that, we're going to just switch over then to the different views. So if we come over and choose tablet view, we can see the size of that is probably a little bit big. So we can click on there, minimum height, we'll adjust that to maybe 70. That looks pretty good. And we'll do the same then for our mobile. And we'll set that to be something a little smaller again. So maybe 50 on there. We'll click update to make sure we commit those changes. And we are pretty much done. So let's just come back out of this, exit to our dashboard, and just go and take a look at our home page again. And we'll see the changes now that have been made for our header as we switch between the different size layouts. So you just basically repeat this for each of the pages, switching them between tablet view, mobile view, just ensuring everything is laid out the way that you want it to, just to fine tune everything. The procedure is exactly the same each time. So let's just try it. We go to tablet view, We can see now that our heading isn't quite as large. We've got a mobile view, it's a little smaller again, and everything is now looking nice, neat and tidy and laid out the way that we want it to.
Well, there we go. That's how we build a WordPress website with a little sprinkling of advanced custom fields magic, how we set up domains, hosting, and all those kinds of good things. So now you have a fully fledged website that you can start to fine-tune, tweak, and add any kind of content you want to. Hopefully what this video has demonstrated is it's not as complex as you may have first thought, and this is giving you a great grounding on how to build your next website if you move on and want to build more. Well, if you want to find out more, check out the links in the description below. Some of those are affiliate links, so if you purchase things like Elementor Pro, you help support the channel for no cost to you whatsoever. That helps us create more great content moving forward. If you'd like to find out more about WordPress and how you can expand your skills, check out the videos you can see on screen right now. They're going to up your skill set massively. As always, if you've got any comments, questions or feedback, drop those in the comment section below. I'd love to get your feedback and have a conversation. Well, my name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.